Stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing a bowl of lather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. A yellow dressing gown, ungirdled, was sustained gently behind him on the mild morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned, "Introibo ad altare Dei." Halted, he peered down the dark winding stairs and called out coarsely, "Come up, Kinch! Come up, you fearful Jesuit!" Solemnly he came forward and mounted the round gun rest. He faced about and blessed gravely thrice the tower, the surrounding lands, and the awaking mountains. Then, catching sight of Stephen Dedalus, he bent towards him and made rapid crosses in the air, gurgling in his throat and shaking his head. Stephen Dedalus, displeased and sleepy, leaned his arms on the top of the staircase and looked coldly at the shaking, gurgling face that blessed him, equine in its length and at the light, untonsured hair. Buck Mulligan peeped an instant under the mirror and then covered the bowl smartly. "Back to barracks! For this so dearly beloved is the genuine Christine, body and soul and blood and ouns." Slow music, please. Shut your eyes, gents. One moment. A little trouble about those white corpuscles. Shh. Silence, all. He peered sideways up and gave a long, slow whistle of call. Two strong, shrill whistles answered through the calm. "Thanks, old chap. That'll do nicely. Switch off the current, will you?" He skipped off the gun rest and looked gravely at his watcher, gathering about his legs the loose folds of his gown. "The mockery of it! Your absurd name, an ancient Greek." He pointed his finger in friendly jest and went over to the parapet, laughing to himself. Stephen Dedalus stepped up, followed him wearily halfway, and sat down on the edge of the gun rest, watching him still as he propped his mirror on the parapet and lathered cheeks and neck. "My name is absurd too. Malachi Mulligan. 2 dactyls. But it has a Hellenic ring, hasn't it? Tripping and sunny like the Buck himself. We must go to Athens. Will you come if I can get the aunt to fork out 20 quid? Will he come, the Jew Jesuit?" "Tell me, Mulligan," Stephen said. "Yes, my love?" "How long is Haynes going to stay in this tower?" "God, isn't he dreadful? A ponderous Saxon, bursting with money and indigestion. Because he comes from Oxford. You know, Dedalus, you have the real Oxford manner. He can't make you out. Oh, my name for you is the best. Kinch, the knife blade." He was raving all night about a Black Panther Where is his gun case? Oh, a woeful lunatic. Were you in a funk? I was. Out here in the dark, with a man I don't know, raving and moaning to himself about shooting a black panther. You save men from drowning. I'm not a hero, however. If he stays on here, I am off. Buck Mulligan frowned at the lather on his razor blade. He hopped down from his perch and began to search his trouser pockets hastily. Scutter, lend us a loan of your nose rag to wipe my razor. Stephen suffered him to pull out and hold up on show by its corner a dirty, crumpled handkerchief. Buck Mulligan wiped the razor blade neatly. The Bard's nose rag. A new art colour for our Irish poets. Snot green. You can almost taste it, can't you? He mounted to the parapet again and gazed out over Dublin Bay, his fair oak pale hair stirring slightly. God, isn't the sea what Algie calls it? A great sweet mother. The snot green sea, the scrosum tightening sea, epi oina pa ponton. Ah, Daedalus, the Greeks. I must teach you. You must read them in the original. Thalatta, Thalatta. She is our great sweet mother. Come and look. Stephen stood up and went over to the parapet. Leaning on it, he looked down on it, on the water, and on the mailboat clearing the harbour mouth of Kingstown. Our mighty mother, Buck Mulligan said. He turned abruptly his grey searching eyes from the sea to Stephen's face. The aunt thinks you killed your mother. That's why she won't let me have anything to do with you. Someone killed her, Stephen said gloomily. You could have knelt down, damn it, Kinch, when your dying mother asked you. I'm Hyperborean as much as you. But to think of your mother begging you with her last breath to kneel down and pray for her. And you refused. There is something sinister in you. Oh, but a lovely mummer, Kinch, the loveliest mummer of them all. He shaved evenly and with care. In silence, seriously. Stephen, an elbow rested on the jagged granite, leaned his palm against his brow, and gazed at the fraying edge of his shiny black coat sleeve. Pain was not yet the pain of love, fretted his heart. Silently in a dream she had come to him after her death, her wasted body within its loose grave clothes, giving off an odour of wax and rosewood, her breath that had bent upon him, a faint odour of wetted ashes. Across the threadbare cuff edge, he saw the sea hailed as a great sweet mother by the well-fed voice beside him. The ring of bay and skyline held a dull green mass of liquid. A bowl of white china had stood beside her bedside, holding the green, sluggish bile, which she had torn up from her rotting liver by fits of loud, groaning vomiting. Buck Mulligan wiped again his razor blade. Ah, poor dog's body. I must give you a shirt and a few nose rags. How are the second-hand breeks? Buck Mulligan attacked the hollow beneath his underlip. They fit well enough, Stephen answered. Ah, the mockery of it. Second leg they should be. God knows what poxy-bowsy left them off. I have a lovely pair with a hair stripe, grey. You look spiffing in them. I'm not joking, Kinch. You look damn well when you're dressed. Thanks. I can't wear them if they are grey. Oh, he can't wear them, Buck Mulligan told his face in the mirror. He kills his mother, but he can't wear grey trousers. He folded his razor neatly and with stroking palps of fingers felt the smooth skin. Stephen turned his gaze from the sea and to the plump face with its smoke-blue mobile eyes. That fellow I was with in the ship last night says you have a GPI. General paralysis of the insane. He swept the mirror a half circle in the air to flash the tidings abroad in sunlight now radiant on the sea. Look at yourself, you dreadful bard. Stephen bent forward and peered at himself in the mirror. Hair on end, as he and others see me. Who chose this face for me? This dog's body to rid of vermin. It asks me too. I pinched it out of the skivvy's room, Buck Mulligan said. Oh, it does her all right. The aunt always picks plain-looking servants for Malachi. Oh, lead him not into temptation. And her name is Ursula. Oh, the rage of Caliban at not seeing his face in a mirror. If Wilde were only alive to see you. Drawing back and pointing, Stephen said with bitterness, it is a symbol of Irish art, the cracked looking glass of a servant. Mulligan suddenly linked his arms in Stephen's and walked with him round the tower, the razor and mirror clacking in his pocket where he had thrust them. It's not fair to tease you like that, Kinch, is it? God knows you have more spirit than any of them. Parry began. He fears the lancet of my art, as I fear that of his, the cold steel pen. Oh, cracked looking glass of a servant. Tell that to the Oxy chap downstairs and touch him for a guinea. He's stinking with money and thinks you're not a gentleman. His old fella made his tin by selling jalap to Zulus or some bloody swindle or other. Oh, God, Kitch, if you and I could only work together, we might do something for the island. Hellenize it. Cranley's arm, his arm. And to think of your having to beg from these swine. I'm the only one that knows what you are. Why don't you trust me more? What have you up your nose against me? Is it Haynes? If he makes any noise here, I'll bring down Seymour. And we'll give him a ragging worse than they gave Clive Kempthorpe. Young shouts of moneyed voices in Clive Kempthorpe's rooms. Pale faces, they hold their ribs with laughter, one clasping another. Oh, I shall expire. Break the news to her gently, Aubrey. I shall die. With slit ribbons of his shirt whipping the air, he hops and hobbles round the table, with trousers down at heel, chased by aides of Magdalen, with their tailor's shears. A scared calf's face, gilded with marmalade. Oh, I don't want to be debagged. Don't you play the giddy ox with me? Shouts from the open window, startling evening in the quadrangle. A deaf gardener, masked with Matthew Arnold's face, pushes the moor on the sombre lawn, watching narrowly the dancing motes of grasshalms. To ourselves, new paganism, omphalos. Let him stay, Stephen said. There's nothing wrong with him except at night. Then what is it? Buck Mulligan said. Cough it up. I'm quite frank with you. What have you against me now? They halted, looking towards the blunt cape of Bray Head that lay on the water like the snout of a sleeping whale. Stephen freed his arm quietly. Do you wish me to tell you? Yes. What is it? I don't remember anything. Do you remember the first day I went to your house after my mother's death? What? Where? I can't remember anything. I remember only ideas and sensations. Why? What happened in the name of God? You were making tea and went across the landing to get more hot water. Your mother and some visitor came out of the drawing room. She asked you who was in your room. Yes. What did I say? I forget. You said, oh, it's only Daedalus, whose mother is beastly dead. Did I say that? Well, what harm is that? And what is death? Your mother's, or yours, or my own? I see them pop off every day in the Martyr and Richmond and cut up into tripes in the dissecting room. It's a beastly thing and nothing else. It simply doesn't matter. You wouldn't kneel down to pray for your mother on her deathbed when she asked you. Why? Because you have the cursed Jesuit strain in you, only it's injected the wrong way. To me, it's all a mockery and beastly. Her cerebral lobes are not functioning. Oh, she calls the doctor Sir Peter Teasel and picks buttercups off the quilt. Humour her till it's over. You crossed her last wish in death, and yet you sulk with me because I don't whinge like some hired mute from Lalouette's. Absurd. I suppose I did say it. I didn't mean to offend the memory of your mother. I am not thinking of the offence to my mother. Well, of what then? Of the offence to me. Oh, an impossible person! Buck Mulligan swung round on his heel. He walked off quickly round the parapet. Stephen stood at his post, gazing over the calm sea towards the headland. Sea and headland now grew dim, and he felt the fever of his cheeks. A voice within the tower called loudly, "Are you up there, Mulligan?" "I'm coming." He turned towards Stephen. "Look at the sea. What does it care about offences? Chuck Loyola Kinch and come on down. The Sassenach wants his morning rushers." His head halted again for a moment at the top of the staircase, level with the roof. "Don't mope over it all day. I'm inconsequent. Give up the moody brooding." His head vanished, but the drone of his descending voice boomed out of the stairhead. "And no more turn aside and brood upon love's bitter mystery, for Fergus rules the brazen cars." Wood shadows floated silently by through the morning peace, from the stairhead seaward where he gazed. Inshore and farther out, the mirror of water whitened, spurned by light-shod, hurrying feet. White breast of the dim sea, wave-white wedded words shimmering on the dim tide. A cloud began to cover the sun, slowly, wholly, shadowing the bay in deeper green. It lay beneath him, a bowl of bitter waters. Fergus's song. I sang it alone in the house, holding down the long, dark chords. Her door was open. She wanted to hear my music. Silent with awe and pity, I went to her bedside. She was crying in her wretched bed. For those words, Stephen, love's bitter mystery. Where now? Her secrets? Old feather fans, tasseled dance cards powdered with musk, a gourd of amber beads in her locked drawer. And no more turn aside and brood. Memories beset his brooding brain. In a dream, silently, she had come to him, her wasted body within its loose grave clothes, her glazing eyes staring out of death to shake and bend my soul. On me alone, the ghost candle to light her agony, her eyes on me to strike me down. Liliata rutilantium te confessorum terma circumdet jubilantium te virginum chorus excipiat. Ghoul, sure of corpses! No, mother, let me be and let me live. Kinch, ahoy! Buck Mulligan's voice sang from within the tower. It came nearer up the staircase, calling again, "Daedalus, come down like a good mosey. Breakfast is ready. Haynes is apologizing for waking us last night. It's all right." "I'm coming." "Do, for Jesus' sake, for my sake and for all our sakes." His head disappeared and reappeared. "I told him your symbol of Irish art. He says it's very clever. Touch him for a quid, will you? A guinea, I mean." "I get paid this morning." "Oh, the school kip. How much?" "4 quid. Lend us one." "If you want it." "4 shining sovereigns. We'll have a glorious drunk to astonish the druidy druids. 4 omnipotent sovereigns. Oh, won't we have a merry time, drinking whiskey, beer and wine, on coronation day. Oh, won't we have a merry time on coronation day." Warm sunshine, merrying over the sea. The nickel shaving bowl shone, forgotten, on the parapet. Why should I bring it down? Or leave it there all day? Forgotten friendship? He went over to it, held it in his hands a while, feeling its coolness, smelling the clammy slather of the lather in which the brush was stuck. So I carried the bowl of incense then at Clongo's. I am another now, and yet the same. A servant too, a server of a servant. In the gloomy, domed living room of the tower, Buck Mulligan's gowned form moved briskly to and fro about the hearth, hiding and revealing its yellow glow. 2 shafts of soft daylight fell across the flagged floor from the high barbicans, and at the meeting of their rays, a cloud of coal smoke and fumes of fried grease floated, turning. We'll be choked. Haynes, open that door, will you? Stephen laid the shaving bowl on the locker. A figure rose from the hammock where it had been sitting, went to the doorway and pulled open the doors. Have you the key? Daedalus had it. Oh, J.D. Mac, I'm choked. Kinch! It's in the lock, Stephen said. The key scraped round harshly twice, and when the heavy door had been set ajar, welcome light and bright air entered. Haynes stood at the doorway looking out. Stephen hailed his upended valise to the table and sat down to wait. Buck Mulligan tossed the fry onto the dish beside him, and he carried the dish and a large teapot over to the table, set them down heavily, and sighed with relief. Oh, I'm melting, as the candle remarked. men. Hush, not a word more on that subject. Kinch, wake up! Bread, butter, honey. Haines, come in. The grub is ready. Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts. Oh, where's the sugar? Oh, Jay, there's no milk. Stephen fetched the loaf and the butter cooler from the locker. Buck Mulligan sat down in a sudden pet. What sort of a kip is this? I told her to come after 8. We can drink it black, Stephen said thirstily. There's a lemon in the locker. Oh, damn you and your Paris fads. I want Sandy Cove milk. Haines came in from the doorway. Oh, that woman is coming up with the milk. Oh, the blessings of God on you. Hey, pour out the tea there. The sugar is in the bag. Here, I can't go fumbling at the damned eggs. He hacked through the fry on the dish and slapped it out on 3 plates, saying, "Oh, in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti." Haines sat down to pour out the tea. I'm going to give you 2 lumps each. But I say, Mulligan, you do make strong tea, don't you? Oh, Buck Mulligan said, hewing thick slices from the loaf. When I makes tea, as old Mother Grogan said. And when I makes water, I makes water. By Jove, it is tea. So I do, Mrs. Cahill, says she. Oh, big God, ma'am, says Mrs. Cahill. God send you don't make them in the one pot. Oh. He lunged towards his messmates in turn, a thick slice of bread impaled on his knife. That's folk for your book, Haines. 5 lines of text and 10 pages of notes about the folk and the fish gods of Dundrum, printed by the Weird Sisters in the year of the Big Wind. Can you recall, brother, is Mother Grogan's tea and water pot spoken of in the Mabinogion, or is it in the Upanishads? I doubt it, Stephen said gravely. Oh, do you now? Your reasons, pray? I fancy, Stephen said, as he ate, it did not exist in or out of the Mabinogion. Mother Grogan was, one imagines, a kinswoman of Mary Ann. Charming. Do you think she was? Quite charming. For our Mary Ann, she doesn't care a damn, but hoisting up her petticoats. He crammed his mouth with fry and munched and droned. The doorway was darkened by an entering form. The milk, sir. Come in, ma'am. Hinch, get the jug. An old woman came forward and stood by Stephen's elbow. That's a lovely morning, sir. Glory be to God. To whom? To be sure. Stephen reached back and took the milk jug from the locker. The islanders, Mulligan said to Haynes, speak frequently of the collector of prepuces. How much, sir? Asked the old woman. A quart, Stephen said. He watched her pour into the measure and thence into the jug rich white milk. Not hers, old shrunken paps. She poured again a measureful and a tilly. Silk of the kine, and poor old woman, names given her in old times. A wandering crone, lowly form of an immortal, serving her conqueror and her gay betrayer, their common cock queen, a messenger from the secret morning, to serve or to upbraid, whether he could not tell, but he scorned to beg her favour. It is indeed, ma'am, Buck Mulligan said, pouring milk into their cups. Taste it, sir. He drank at her bidding. If we could live on good food like that, we wouldn't have the country full of rotten teeth and rotten guts, living in a bog swamp, eating cheap food, and the streets paved with dust, horse dung, and consumptive spits. Are you a medical student, sir? I am. Oh, look at that now. Stephen listened in scornful silence. She bows her old head to a voice that speaks to her loudly, her bone setter, her medicine man. Me she slights. And to the loud voice that now bids her be silent, with wandering, unsteady eyes, be de hushed. Do you understand what he says? Stephen asked her. Is it French you are talking, sir? Haynes spoke to her again, a longer speech, confidently. Irish, Buck Mulligan said. Is there Gaelic on you? I thought it was Irish by the sound of it. Are you from the West, sir? I am an Englishman. He's English, and he thinks we ought to speak Irish in Ireland. Oh, sure we ought to, and I'm ashamed I don't speak the language myself. I'm told it's a grand language by them that knows. Oh, grand is no name for it. Wonderful entirely. Fill us out some more tea, Kinch. Would you like a cup, ma'am? No, thank you, sir, the old woman said, the ring of the milk can on her forearm and about to go. Have you your bill? We'd better pay her, Mulligan, hadn't we? Stephen filled again the 3 cups. Bill, sir? Well, it's 7 mornings a pint at 2pence is 7 twos is a shilling and 2pence over. And these 3 mornings a quart at 4pence is 3 quarts is a shilling. That's a shilling, 1 and 2 is 2 and 2, sir. Buck Mulligan sighed, and having filled his mouth with a crust thickly buttered on both sides, stretched forth his legs and began to search his trouser pockets. Pay up and look pleasant, Haynes said to him, smiling. Stephen filled a 3rd cup, a spoonful of tea, colouring faintly the thick, rich milk. Buck Mulligan brought up a florin, twisted it round in his fingers, and cried, "A miracle." He passed it along the table to the old woman, saying, "Ask nothing more of me, sweet. All I can give you, I give." Stephen laid the coin in her uneager hand. "We'll owe twopence." Time enough, sir. Good morning, sir." She curtsied and went out, followed by Buck Mulligan's tender chant. "Heart of my heart, were it more, more would be laid at your feet." Seriously, Douglas, I'm stony. Hurry out to your school, Kip, and bring us back some money. Today, the bards must drink and junket. Ireland expects that every man this day will do his duty. That reminds me, Haynes said, I have to visit your National Library today. Our swim first. Is this the day for your monthly wash kinch? The unclean bard makes a point of washing once a month. All Ireland is washed by the Gulf Stream, Stephen said, as he let honey trickle over a slice of the loaf. Haynes, from the corner where he was knotting easily a scarf about the loose collar of his tennis shirt, spoke. "I intend to make a collection of your sayings, if you will let me." Speaking to me, they wash and tub and scrub. Again bite of inwit. Conscience, yet here's a spot. That one about the cracked looking glass of a servant being the symbol of Irish art is just good. Buck Mulligan kicked Stephen's foot under the table. "Wait till you hear him on Hamlet, Haynes." "Well, I mean it. I was just thinking of it when that poor old creature came in." "Would I make any money by it?" Stephen asked. "Well, I don't know, I'm sure." Haynes strolled out to the doorway. Buck Mulligan bent across to Stephen. You put your hoof in it now. What did you say that for?" "Well, the problem is to get money." "From whom? From the milkwoman or from him? It's a toss-up, I think." "I blow him out about you," Buck Mulligan said. "And then you come along with your lousy leer and your gloomy Jesuit jibes." "I see little hope," Stephen said, "from her or from him." Buck Mulligan sighed tragically. "From me, Kitch." "To tell you the God's truth, I think you're right. Damn all else they are good for. Why don't you play them as I do? To hell with them all. Let us get out of the Kip." He stood up, gravely ungirdled, and disrobed himself of his gown. Mulligan is stripped of his garments. Oh, and there's your snot rag. And putting on his stiff collar and his rebellious tie, he spoke to them, chiding them, and to his dangling watch chain. His hands plunged and rummaged in his trunk while he called for a clean handkerchief. God, we'll simply have to dress the character. I want puce gloves and green boots. Contradiction? Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. Mercurial monarchy. A limp black missile flew out of his talking hands, and there's your Latin Quarter hat. Stephen picked it up and put it on. Haynes called to them from the doorway. "Are you coming, you fellows?" "I'm ready," Buck Mulligan answered, going towards the door. "Come out, Kinch. You've eaten all we had left, I suppose. Resigned, he passed out with grave words, and going forth, he met Butterly. Stephen, taking his ash plant from its leaning place, followed them out. And as they went down the ladder, pulled to the slow iron door and locked it. He put the huge key in his inner pocket. At the foot of the ladder, Buck Mulligan asked, "Did you bring the key?" "I have it," Stephen said, preceding them. He walked on. Behind him, he heard Buck Mulligan club with his heavy bath towel the leader shoots of ferns or grasses. "Down, sir! How dare you, sir?" Haynes asked, "Do you pay rent for this tower?" 12 quid, Buck Mulligan said. To the Secretary of State for War, Stephen added over his shoulder. "Rather bleak in winter time, I should say. Martello, you call it." Billy Pitt had them built when the French were on the sea, but ours is the omphalos. What is your idea of Hamlet?" Haynes asked Stephen. No, I'm not equal to Thomas Aquinas and the 55 reasons he has made out to prop it up. Wait till I have a few pints in me first." He turned to Stephen. "You couldn't manage it under 3 pints, Kinch, could you?" "It has waited so long. It can wait longer." "You pique my curiosity. Is it some paradox?" "Pooh! We have grown out of wild and paradoxes. It's quite simple. He proves by algebra that Hamlet's grandson is Shakespeare's grandfather, and that he himself is the ghost of his own father." "What? He himself?" Buck Mulligan slung his towel stolewise round his neck, and bending in loose laughter, said to Stephen, "O shade of Kinch the elder, Japhet in search of a father." "We're always tired in the morning," Stephen said, "and it is rather long to tell." Buck Mulligan, walking forward again, raised his hands. "The sacred pint alone can unbind the tongue of Daedalus." "I mean to say," Haynes explained, "this tower and these cliffs here remind me somehow of Elsinore. That beetles all his base into the sea, isn't it?" Buck Mulligan turned suddenly for an instant towards Stephen, but did not speak. In the bright, silent instant, Stephen saw his own image in cheap, dusty mourning between their gay attires. "It's a wonderful tale," Haynes said, bringing them to halt again. Eyes, pale as the sea the wind had freshened, paler, firm, and prudent. The sea's ruler, he gazed southward over the bay. Empty, save for the smoke blue plume of the mailboat, vague on the bright skyline, and a sail tacking by the mutlins. I read a theological interpretation of it somewhere. The father and the son idea, the son striving to be atoned with the father. Buck Mulligan at once put on a blithe, broadly smiling face. "I'm the queerest young fellow that ever you heard. My mother's a Jew, my father's a bird. With Joseph the joiner I cannot agree, so here's to disciples and Calvary. If anyone thinks that I amn't divine. He'll get no free drinks when I'm making the wine, but have to drink water and wish it were plain that I make when the wine becomes water again. Goodbye now, goodbye, write down all I said. Tell Tom, Dick and Harry I rose from the dead. What's bred in the bone cannot fail me to fly. And all of it's breezy. Goodbye now, goodbye. He capered before them, down towards the 40-foot hole, fluttering his wing-like hands, leaping nimbly. Haynes, who had been laughing guardedly, walked on beside Stephen. We oughtn't to laugh, I suppose. He's rather blasphemous. I'm not a believer myself, that is to say. Still, his gaiety takes the harm out of it somehow, doesn't it? What did he call it? Joseph the Joiner? The Ballad of Joking Jesus, Stephen answered. Oh, you've heard it before. 3 times a day after meals. You're not a believer, are you? I mean, a believer in the narrow sense of the word. Creation from nothing and miracles and a personal God. There's only one sense of the word, it seems to me. Haynes stopped to take out a smooth silver case in which twinkled a green stone. He sprang it open and offered it. Thank you, Stephen said, taking a cigarette. Haynes helped himself and snapped the case to. Having lit his cigarette, he held the flaming spunk towards Stephen in the shell of his hands. Yes, of course. Either you believe or you don't, isn't it? Personally, I couldn't stomach that idea of a personal God. You don't stand for that, I suppose. You behold in me, Stephen said, a horrible example of free thought. He walked on, waiting to be spoken to, trailing his ash plant by his side. Its ferule followed lightly on the path, squealing at his heels. My familiar, after me, calling, Stephen! A wavering line along the path. They will walk on it tonight, coming here in the dark. He wants that key. It is mine. I paid the rent. Now I eat his salt bread. Give him the key too. All he will ask for it. That was in his eyes. After all, Haynes began. Stephen turned and saw that the cold gaze which had measured him was not all unkind. After all, I should think you are able to free yourself. You are your own master, it seems to me. I am a servant of 2 masters, an English and an Italian. Italian? A crazy queen, old and jealous. Kneel down before me. And a third there is who wants me for odd jobs. Italian? What do you mean? The Imperial British State and the Holy Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church. Haynes detached from his underlip some fibers of tobacco. I can quite understand that. An Irishman must think like that, I dare say. We feel in England that we have treated you rather unfairly. Well, it seems history is to blame. The proud, potent titles clanged over Stephen's memory, the triumph of their brazen bells. Et unam sanctam Catholicam et Apostolicam Ecclesiam. Of course, I'm a Britisher, and I feel as one. I don't want to see my country fall into the hands of German Jews either. That's our national problem, I'm afraid, just now. Two men stood at the verge of the cliff, watching. Businessman, boatman. She's making for Bullock Harbour. The boatman nodded. There's 5 fathoms out there. He'll be swept up that way when the tide comes in about 1. It's 9 days today. The man was drowned, a sail veering about the blank bay, waiting for a swollen bundle to bob up. Roll over to the sun, a puffy white face, salt white. Here I am. They followed the winding path down to the creek. Buck Mulligan stood on a stone in shirt sleeves, his unclipped tie rippling over his shoulder. A young man, clinging to a spur of rock, moved slowly frogwise, his green legs in the deep jelly of the water. Is the brother with you, Malachi? Down in Westmeath, with the Bannons. Still there. I got a card from Bannon. Says he found a sweet young thing down there. Photo girl, he calls her. Snapshot, eh? Brief exposure. Buck Mulligan sat down to unlace his boots. An elderly man shot up near the spur of rock, a blowing red face. He scrambled up by the stones, water glistening on his pate and its garland of grey hair, water rilling over his chest and paunch and spilling jets out of his black, sagging loincloth. Buck Mulligan made way for him to scramble past, and glancing at Haines and Stephen, crossed himself piously with his thumbnail. Seymour's back in town, the young man said, grabbing again his spur of rock. Chuck medicine and going in for the army. Ah, go to God, Buck Mulligan said. Going over next week to stew. You know that Red Carlisle girl, Lily? Yes, spooning with him last night on the pier. The father is rotto with money. Is she up the pole? You better ask Seymour that. Seymour, a bleeding officer. He nodded to himself as he drew off his trousers and stood up. Red-headed women buck like goats. My 12th rib is gone. I'm the Ubermensch. Toothless Kinch and I, the Superman. He struggled out of his shirt and flung it behind him to where his clothes lay. Are you going in here, Malachi? Yes, make room in the bed. The young man shoved himself backward through the water and reached the middle of the creek in 2 long, clean strokes. Haines sat down on a stone, smoking. Are you coming in? Not on my breakfast. Stephen turned away. I'm going, Mulligan. Give us that key, Kinch, to keep my chemise flat. Stephen handed him the key. Buckmulligan laid it across his heaped clothes. And twopence for a pint. Throw it there. Stephen threw 2 pennies on the soft heap. Dressing, undressing, Buckmulligan erect, said solemnly, "He who stealeth from the poor lendeth to the Lord. Thus spake Zarathustra, his plump body plunged." "We'll see you again," Haines said, turning to Stephen as he walked up the path and smiling at Wild Irish. Horn of a bull, hoof of a horse, smile of a Saxon. The ship," Buckmulligan cried. 12:30. "Good," Stephen said. He walked along the upward curving path. Liliata rutilantium turma circumdet, jubilantium te virginum. The priest's grey nimbus in a niche where he dressed discreetly. "I will not sleep here tonight. Home also I cannot go." A voice, sweet-toned and sustained, called to him from the sea. Turning the curve, he waved his hand. It called again. A sleek brown head, a seal's, far out on the water, round. Usurper.